All right, guys. So let's dive into the first one, which is a big one, right? Is it's the fear of failure. Okay, and this doesn't just hold people back in fitness or in the gym. It shows up in every part of life, from what I can see, right? And I have dealt with this myself in the past, but it shows up in career, relationships, and even hobbies, sports, all sorts of stuff. Relationships, as I said, like in terms of how you might want to say something that you don't want to say, and might want to do something that you don't want to do, so and so on and so forth, right? But most people convince themselves that they can't do something, right? They'll talk themselves out of it because of that belief that they have. They don't even give themselves a chance to try, right? Now, that's the sad part of it, to be honest. It's not failure that actually stops you, it's the fear of failing that you even start, right? That stops you from even getting going. Okay, and failure, like the fear of failure, is just limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. It's like an invisible wall, right? That's stopping us from moving where we want to get to. So the fear of failure usually starts with a limiting belief that you have created within your own mind, okay? And a limiting belief is basically a story that you tell yourself that puts a ceiling on what's possible, even though it's not fact, okay? I'm going to use an example here because she's actually here tonight. Siobhan, if you don't mind me using it, but you at one stage had a slight fear of doing a half marathon. And now, guys, in the last month, she's done two back to back, right? So she overcame that limiting belief that she could do it, or that fear that she was putting in front of herself. So she overcame that and pushed herself. And when she done one, then it built confidence to do another. And now she has more planned. She's another two planned over the next a couple of months. Okay, so that's just a little example. Hope you don't mind me using that, Siobhan, there. Just spotted you in the chat room here. And just said I'd bring that to light. So the thing is, guys, a lot of it is what we create within our own mind. Siobhan before was telling herself that she can't, she won't be able to do that, right? But then over time, through obviously a lot of training, right, a lot of exercise, building up to the point that she could feel, that she's capable of doing it. Because a lot of it is in the preparation, guys. Like if you fail to prepare, then prepare to fail. Then there's no like point going into something and you're already doubting yourself, going, did I do enough? Did I do the work? And usually, if you're thinking those kind of things, it's not going to end well. If you go into it with doubt and fear that you're going to fail, and it's normal to have a little bit of fear and a little bit of nervous energy, but you need to have belief in yourself also that you can go and do it. Another great quote by Henry Ford, and some of you might have heard me say this before, is that if you think you can, then you can, and if you think you can't, then you can't. Either way, you are right. Okay, so a very important one to reflect on there. It's very simple when you repeat it back. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you're right. So it's what you think up here. It's that belief that you speak out. Whereas if you're always doubting yourself, if you think you can do something, then you're definitely not going to be able to do it. So there was a story. Where that came from, that quote was there was the V8 engine. If any of you are familiar with cars, it's a type of engine that's built in a V shape. Most cars on the road you see are like four cylinders. Some might be six cylinders and they're straight. But the V type engine is a famous engine. It's a V8 engine. There's V6s as well, V10s, V12s. The V8 in particular had never been built, right? And these engineers kept saying that it was impossible to build an engine of that type. They all used to be in a straight line before, the cylinders. But he said, no, it is possible. Keep at it, keep working at it. And then he came back a couple of months later. They kept going, it's not possible. And he goes, it is possible. You need to keep at it. You need to stick with it. Another couple of months passed, same thing again. They were like down in the dumps. And he said that quote, that exact quote. If you think you can do it, you can. And if you think you can't, you can't. Either way, you're right. So then they changed their attitude. They believed, right, if he keeps saying we can do it, we must be able to do it. He didn't leave him with much choice either because he was like, if you don't do it, you're getting sacked, right? Now, there was a bit of added pressure there that might have helped, but it was the belief that they can, and he kept believing that they could. And that's the difference between belief and disbelief, okay? Beliefs are self-fulfilling, when you believe or what you believe dictates what you attempt. and what you attempt dictates what you achieve. Because if you don't believe in yourself to do something, you're never going to attempt to do it in the first place. If you don't believe that you can sing, you're never going to get up and sing. If you don't believe that you can, you know, win in a match, then there's a good chance that you might win that match. Now, there's 10 other players if it's soccer to pull you through, or 14 other players in J. But let's use a fight, for example. If you don't believe you can win in the fight, there's a high likelihood, a chance you're not going to win that fight. So you have to believe in yourself. They're just some different examples that I'm spitting out into the air. But belief is so important. Now, where does that stem from? Where does the limiting beliefs, the invisible walls, the ceilings that we put on ourselves, where do they stem from? It's usually from a past experience. It's not proof of the future because you can't predict what's going to happen in the future. It's usually something happened in the past that caused you to have those beliefs now, that causes you to doubt yourself, that causes you to have fear. And another thing that feeds that fear is what you went through, right? Whatever went down in the past, whatever someone might have said to you in maybe going back as far as school, because that's when a lot of our beliefs are formed when we're kids and teenagers. And just because you failed before, it doesn't mean you'll fail again. Okay, and everyone will interpret it differently. Some people can use like negativity as fuel, and they're very good at doing that. Like someone saying you're not good enough, you can't do this, and then they'll go out and try and prove them wrong. Whereas other people, they really take it to heart, and then it impacts everything that they do because they do buy into those beliefs that people, they take on what other people say about them and they run with that, and they don't know how to break it down. Whereas this is what we're trying to get at this on this training, is that if you do fall into that category where you don't use it as fuel, you can't use that negativity as fuel, you need to try and look at it a different way and break down those walls that other people have put on you, those limiting beliefs that other people have brought into your life, okay? Because failure usually just means you need more practice. Maybe you need a smarter approach. You just need to do things in a slightly different way. That's all it usually is. It's usually just tweaks and changes. So next time, it isn't a fail, right? And failure is never fatal either, guys. You know, failure is just feedback, Um, Another one, like another really powerful quote, it was from Albert Einstein, who was another really clever individual. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you're constantly failing, usually it's probably because you might be doing the same things, and that's a bit insane, right? Like that's what he's trying to say there. So change your approach, you'll get a different result. Maybe it mightn't be the exact right result you were looking for, but maybe it's an improvement in the previous result. Once you don't give up, that is the thing. You win or you learn in certain situations in life, okay? Looking at a fitness example, because I'm using examples from all sorts of things from Henry Ford to Albert Einstein, but maybe in the past you cut out all the foods you love to lose weight, right? Which is something that's quite common. People get very restrictive, super restrictive with what they eat. And yes, it might have worked temporarily. It's like a fad diet or a quick fix. But then at the end, or maybe halfway through it, you might have binged and fell off and regained everything. Maybe ended up worse than where you were when you started. That's quite a common thing to happen to people because they get super restrictive when it doesn't need to be that way. Now, if that was an experience you had in the past, it doesn't mean that you can't lose weight. It doesn't mean that nothing is ever going to work for you again. It means the approach you had was broken and it just wasn't working for you very well. Okay, so the smart move obviously is to find a system that's suitable to you, that's sustainable, that works long term, instead of repeating the same crash diets over and over again, which is exactly what we try and do here at Progressive Fitness, is educate you around how it can be very sustainable and very enjoyable. It doesn't have to feel like you're even on a diet, guys, as I'm sure a lot of you will attest to now at this stage, even in the early stages of the program, okay? Now, moving along to looking at failure in a different light in terms of your exercise and training, right? So, failure in training is actually a good thing, right? In the gym, failure takes a much more different meaning than a lot of other, like a failing exam is a different to failing in the gym, right? Or failing to get the job you wanted, the interview didn't go well, is different to failing in the gym. So it takes on a different meaning. So let's just say you're pushing for one more rep in the gym, right? And you just physically can't get it. You're pushing as hard as you can, and you know you can't get out that extra rep. That's not a bad thing. That's actually the point. because you're training to failure, right? That is a good thing. That's where you want to go to, as close to failure as possible, where it's safe to do so, okay? Because muscle grows when you push it to failure. So again, if you look at failure in that sense and try and bring that into other areas of your life, failure is actually a good thing because it's allowing you to grow and develop and change. So if you stop this set, let's say, way too early, or when it's easy, let's say, you could have got another 5, 6 reps. Then it's just too easy. Nothing adapts, nothing changes. You stay in that comfort zone. It's when you get uncomfortable and you have to push that bit extra and it's like tough and it's not easy. That's where the change happens. That's where the growth happens. Okay. So, like building muscle, you have to be willing to go to failure. Like anything else in life, you have to take risks and fail forward, right? We'll be talking about that in a moment. But beginners, yes, like if you're brand new to the gym, you can make a bit of progress without hitting failure. But anyone that's after a couple of months in, once you start to become a bit more intermediate, and especially anyone that's advanced, you need to be able to push yourself close to failure. Okay? Like no one thinks I couldn't get that last rep, so I'm never going to exercise again, right? Oh fuck it, I couldn't get that one more rep. That's it. I'm done with this. I'm just quitting the gym. They know it's part of the process. Yet in life, when people fail once, they tend to quit forever. I'm never doing that again. That was way too tough. But if you use it in the gym analogy, it's just feedback, is all. Feedback that the next time you go at it, there'll be improvements. A lot of the stuff we do in the gym, guys, carries over into everyday life in terms of how you look at it and the discipline and the resilience and failing and continuing to go and failing. Like that's like analogies for life, right? If you take that approach that you do in the gym to life, it really does set you up for success. So reframing failure, guys, I want you all to be able to do that. Fail fast and fail forwards because failure isn't fatal, it's feedback, okay? Every time that you fail, you've just learned one more way not to do it. That's all it is. In training, failure is the stimulus for growth. In life, failure is a lesson for growth. Okay, so that's the mindset shift that I want you to have. Instead of seeing failure as fatal, look at it as a bit of a stop sign or see it as a stepping stone. That's all it really is. Okay, so the takeaway from the first topic is limiting beliefs are really simply they're invisible, right? You must knock them down if you want to progress. You must break down those barriers, those ceilings, those walls, whatever way you want to look at it. And past failures is not proof of a future failure. All it is lessons. All right, here's the approach I take the next time. Maybe I need to train a bit more if I'm preparing for a competition. Maybe I need to fuel my body a bit better. Maybe I need to, not include this into my diet and have that instead, okay? All past failures are is feedback and lessons that we can take from, and it'll make us better in the future if we take those lessons from it. Okay, and in training, like I said, must emphasize this failure or getting close to it is required for progress. So don't fool yourself thinking you can just go in there and go through the motions and see changes, guys. Okay, the people who get the results they want are never the ones who avoid failure. Okay, they actually embrace it. They're the ones who fail, they learn, they keep moving forward. So they fail fast and they fail forwards and they keep moving. Okay, so that's topic one, guys. Let me know in the chat if that's making sense. Anyone want to have an input on that? Anyone want to mention anything, touch on anything with regards to topic number one? And we'll move on to topic number two then swiftly. Just let me know if it's landing anyway, guys. Where's the chat section here? Someone gave a thumbs up there anyway. One person is landing with. Come on, guys, don't be shy. Let me know. Is this hitting home? Is this making sense? Have you been guilty in the past of holding yourself back from failures? What is going on with you when it comes to failure? Because a lot of people were telling me that's why I brought this point up today. Is like noticed in a few check-ins there the last month or so that they have this fear of doing it all different areas, not just in the gym, like No one really kind of fears it too much in the gym. Yes, some people are afraid of pushing themselves with the heavier weights, which they shouldn't be. You should be trying to challenge yourself and push yourself and get uncomfortable a little bit. Because if you get comfortable being uncomfortable, that's where the growth happens and that's where the growth occurs, as I said, okay? But in other areas as well, it's impacting people, which is why I wanted to bring it to light here in tonight's session. Sean, all good, man. Good to see. It's making sense anyway to a few of you. So the next topic is around binge eating and self-sabotage, which is another problem that I've seen arising. Self-sabotage is tied into limiting beliefs as well a little bit, but even if this is something that you might not struggle with right now, it's definitely worth listening to closely because it can crop up at any stage of your life, okay? It's one of those things that if you don't understand the triggers, you'll kind of keep falling into the same trap over and over again, okay? So restriction equals rebellion, right? If you're constantly restricting yourself, it's only a matter of time until you rebel, okay? You will rebel over and over and over again because it's just going to feel like this is not something I cannot sustain. So one of the biggest reasons people binge is because they restrict themselves too much. Like if you tell yourself you're not allowed chocolate, crisps, or a drink, you just make yourself want it more. If you tell yourself, it's like a child, you tell them they can't do it, they're going to want to do it. We're all big kids at the end of the day, right? So the trick is learning how to incorporate these foods into your diet without blowing up your diet, right? That's why I always say if you want a piece of chocolate or you want to fit in a treat, you just have to track it properly. You just have to make an allowance for it. You just fit it in without going overboard and pressing that fuck up button, right? Um, with fizzy drinks, it's a very simple fix these days, guys. People used to like when you craved them before, you just had to go out and get one, and it's the full sugar job, and like there's no avoiding the calories or the massive increase in sugar you're taking into your body, which affects your blood sugar levels, of course. Whereas now you have examples like 7 Up Free, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, zero calorie options, which, I wouldn't be saying going out and be drinking multiple cans of them every day, but here and there, to curb a craving is a great option because it's 0 calories. Okay? So it's going to allow you to consistently adhere to that calorie deficit. If you have one with your dinner at night, it's 0 calories, it tastes the exact same, it kills the craving. It's a hack that didn't exist years ago. So now it should make it essentially a lot easier for people in that sense to fit these kind of things in. So the lesson from this is simply like if you remove the restriction, you remove the rebound binge. Like moderation, of course, still matters. Like anything, you can't just be saying, I'm gonna have a whole packet of biscuits or the share packet of crisps. It's not about eating a whole pack of chocolate bars and the whole share pack of potatoes every day. It's about just fitting things in the right way where you don't feel like you're restricting yourself. If it's within your total calories, if it makes up 10 to 20% of your total calories, it's not a big deal across the week. If it's split up across the week like that. Remember that 80-20 rule? Some of you might have been hearing it for the first time. If 80% of your calories are coming from good quality nutritious foods, the other 20% you can have a little bit of fun with as long as it's within your calories, okay? Just want you to understand that. But comfort eating, guys, is a double-edged sword, right? Another reason people binge is for comfort. Food becomes that emotional crutch. It kind of helps for a moment. You just feel, oh, I'll turn to food here if you feel something emotional come on. But it's afterwards, then you feel that guilt, you feel bloated, and you feel worse than you did before you even did that emotional eating episode. You start beating yourself up about it, and it just becomes that self-sabotage of vicious cycles, right? So that guilt can actually then fuel more binging because you're sabotaging and you're like, why did I do that? And then you're feeling worse about yourself, and then you just binge even more. So it can go on and on like that because now you need comfort for the fact you already feel like you've ruined it, okay? So questions to ask yourself when you do feel that kind of episode coming on from a binge eating episode is catch yourself in the moment. When you feel that craving, you're like, oh, do you know what? I just love something now to eat just to deal with the stress of this or whatever it is you're feeling. But ask yourself, did something stressful happen at work that's causing me to feel this way? something trigger me at work that's causing me to go to the cupboards and reach for the crap or drive to the shop and get it. Maybe you had a fight with your partner or a friend, which can trigger it too. Relationships, a lot of times, secret eating is another thing that goes on, right? To deal with maybe feelings of anxiety or feelings of whatever emotion you're feeling. That's why it's called emotional eating. We covered this last month about the different emotions, the different types of emotional eating. There's 8 different types. For anyone that hasn't watched that yet, I highly recommend you go and watch it back. We're not going to dive into that tonight, but again, it can be triggered from anything, right? Is there something on your mind that's making you feel anxious? Are you lonely? Are you bored? Are you overwhelmed? There's the lonely eater. We spoke about that, the boredom eater, the stressed out eater, right? Because binging is rarely about hunger. It's actually about avoiding emotions, about you don't want to feel what you're feeling, so you get that little dopamine hit from the chocolate, the sugar, the sweets, and it curbs it for a while, but then it's just 10x's after that. Okay, so find the root, not just the food, right? If you don't address the real problem behind the binge, whether that's the stress, the low self-esteem, maybe it's unhappiness in your job, that food cycle will not stop. No matter what I tell you, no matter I can give you the best nutrition plan in the world, but if you're constantly falling into that trap of eating through your emotions, the food cycle won't stop. Okay, so sometimes this is obviously deeper than coaching, like deeper than me giving you a nutrition plan. It's obviously down to a bit of mindset work, a bit of overcoming those eating behaviors. We have the trainings within the group for this, guys. So if you are ever struggling with this, do reach out. Whether it's journaling, as I said, the mindset work, maybe even leaning into therapy if you feel you need it. Even just talking it out with me, guys, makes a big, big difference. So don't ever be afraid to reach out if it is something you are struggling with. We've helped hundreds of people with these situations. So it's all there within the group. So don't ever be shy about it. Some people hold it back if they feel embarrassed about it. If the results aren't occurring, there's usually a reason behind it, and we'll get to the bottom of it then. But it's easier again if you come to me first because we're being proactive about it. We're not being reactive, okay? And remember, it's not always junk food either, guys. People binge on bread, cereals, um, even healthy foods. It's about the behavior, not just the calories. I spoke about this in a recent video I did 78 years ago. I used to believe by just eating healthy foods, I'd lose body fat, I'd lose weight, but it's not the case. You can overeat unhealthy foods as well. You've probably seen me that video if you're obviously following the Instagram, and it's an important one to understand. Just because you eat healthy, you can eat as much all the healthy foods in the world, but you can still overeat healthy foods, which would mean you wouldn't lose body fat. So just 4 practical tips, guys, to break the cycle if it is something that you struggle with or might struggle with in the future, right? The first one's awareness, and it's about spotting the patterns that are occurring. So you write down when you might feel like binging. You might make a note of it on your phone, or you like when you feel that urge. Like what happened earlier that day that's causing you to feel that urge. Trace back, where is the trigger coming from? If you don't track it, you won't see the loop, okay? When you do, let's say, fall into that episode, and let's say it did happen, make a note of how you felt afterwards. And that's a really good hack because you can build up maybe a couple of notes that you can go and look at the next time you feel it and go, Jesus, this is the way I felt afterwards. I don't want to feel that way again. And that can help. So play the tape forward, right? Before you act, remind yourself how you felt the last time. The notes on your phone are a great way of doing that. Did it solve the problem? No, likely not. You felt guilty? More than likely, you felt sluggish. The problems were still there even afterwards. So memory and just jotting things down and journaling and note taking can be a powerful disruptor, okay? Then enjoy food as well, guys. I'm not saying don't like say oh food the food is one of the best things in the world. I love food. Food isn't bad at all. Okay? It's important that you understand that food is something it's very powerful. It brings people together, right? It's connection. It tastes great. It helps you fuel your body. It gives you vitality. It's your health, your skin, your eye, your hair, your nails. All this nutrient we get from food. It does so many important things. So it is important that we love food and we enjoy food, right? And when you eat food you enjoy as well, you slow down and you actually taste them. Okay, if you inhale a chocolate bar in 30 seconds, it doesn't even register. You just want more. You had a quick hit of dopamine. Where's the next bar? I want to get that quick hit again. If you sit down and you be present and you enjoy it, you'll need less and you'll feel much more satisfied. Okay, so the takeaway I want you to get from this binge eating topic is that restriction will lead to rebellion, so we must allow flexibility. Okay, it's important to be flexible. Comfort eating does not fix the problems, it just adds to them often. Okay, more often than not. Awareness and honesty about your triggers are the first step to actually breaking that cycle. Okay, and when you do eat, make sure we slow down with it, make sure we enjoy it, make sure that we're present. Our mind isn't wandering all over the place. So if this is something you struggle with, guys, don't be ashamed. We've all had periods where we fell into that binge eating, even myself included. Many people who've been through this process have. It's not that you're broken, it's not that you can't fix it. You just need to tackle the root cause instead of beating yourself up over the symptom. Okay? So let me know if that one makes sense, guys. Before we move on to the final topic of tonight, let's give us a quick thumbs up in the chat there. All good. Thumbs up coming in. Good stuff. Siobhan, O'Sheen, super. Lydia, brilliant. Appreciate it. Let's keep moving forward. Stephanie, good stuff. Final topic, guys. I want to kind of clear something up on this one, okay? It's something I see all the time. And it's the difference between exercising and training with intent, okay? But a lot of people confuse the two, believe it or not. They think because they're sweating or because they just showed up, it means that they're progressing. But that's not how it works, right? Progress doesn't come from motion and just, going through the motions. It comes from moving with intention, moving your body with intention, moving weight with intention, okay? Exercise is activity, right? Training is actually progress. So exercising is just moving your body around the place, right? Yes, it's burning a few calories. Yes, you're breaking a sweat. Is it good for your health? Yes, it is. It's ticking a box, right? This is what happens when people do fitness classes, right? They're kind of just exercising, whereas gym instructor led, they're not really challenging themselves as much or pushing their body as hard. I'm not saying every class is like this, but a lot of them are like this, okay? The difference with training with intent is that you're following a structured plan that's designed to take you from A to B. So every session has a purpose. If you're going into the gym and you're just doing whatever you feel like that day, you're doing a bit of bicep curls, a few abs, sitting into whatever machine you see is free. You're again going through the motions. You're kind of just exercising, getting a bit of movement in. Is it bad for you? No. But is it going to get you the most out of your time there? No. So if you're progressing with your lifts, if you're tracking your weights, if you're working towards a specific outcome, whether it's muscle gain or whether it's fat loss, again, that's training with intent, okay? So the analogy I like to use is like, it's the difference between going for that Sunday drive, right? But you don't put in a destination, you're just kind of seeing where the road takes you, versus with a sat nav to reach a specific destination. Let's say you're traveling up to Dublin. One's just a spin, the other gets you somewhere. Okay, when you train with intent. So why does intent matter then? Why not just go for the random spins, right? Your body will only really adapt when it has a reason to. Okay, if you always lift the same weights for the same reps, your body has no reason to change or grow. Intent means that you're actually progressively overloading. You're adding reps, you're maybe adding a bit of weight, not every single week, but maybe some weeks you're adding more time under tension, you've more control, more stability, you're improving your form for certain exercises over time. Without intent, you'll stay stuck, right? Your body will just stay the same for years if you go to the gym 5 days a week. I've seen it, guys. I'm training myself 12 years. I believe now, 12, maybe 13 years. And I've seen lads come and go from the gym, lads that are there consistent for years and they just look the exact same. And I'm like, you're putting in all this time and all this effort and you don't see any, you look the exact same you did 4, 5, 6 years ago. Like, how frustrating must that be? Maybe they don't realize it, but I believe that they probably do, and they're just too maybe egotistical to ask for help, especially lads. We all know what it's like as men. Our egos can get the better of us sometimes. For women, it might be fear of reaching out. There's different reasons why. Um, or maybe they're just happy to get in an exercise, right? Maybe that is the case for some people. But the thing is, random training is going to equate to random results. Random training is random results. So random training and random eating, you're definitely going to get random results with both of those, right? Combined. You're going to be up, down, left, right. You won't know what's happening. You'll be all over the place. So that's why I always say what gets measured, gets managed, and gets improved. We train with intent. We track our lifts. We make sure we stay on top of our nutrition and hit our targets. You're guaranteed to use that sat nav then and get exactly where you want to be, from A to B. Okay. Now examples would be right an exercise example, just to make sure this is clear in your mind, guys, before we step away tonight. I want you all to understand this. Like, doing 3 sets of 10 with the same weight that you've done for the last 6 months, right? That's an example of exercising. It feels comfortable. You might get a bit sweaty because you've done 30 reps there all together in the 3 sets, but you're not really changing anything. Nothing is under strain or stress. You're not breaking down those muscle fibers so they can regrow stronger, bigger, better. Training with intent would be, let's say last week you done 3 by 8 on the chest press machine, right, with 60 kgs, or a squat. It doesn't matter, any exercise, right? You done 3 by 10 or 3 by 8, and you got 60 kgs. This week you might go, do you know what? I'm gonna try and go by 3 by 12 reps, or instead of that, I might go 3 by 65 kgs, or I might do the first 2 sets at 65 and back off to 60. It's still a progression on the week before. As I said, you might only get 1 rep extra, 11 reps instead of 10. That's progress, that's intent, that's progressive overload, okay? So, training with intent also means that you know why you're doing the movement. You know you're not just squatting because it's on the plan. You're squatting because it builds your quads, it builds your glutes, it builds core strength, it builds athleticism, functionality, mobility, longevity, all of these things, right? Everything has a purpose, and we want to believe it does, and train with intent with that purpose behind where you're going with it, okay? So, how do you switch then mentally from, maybe you're stuck in that mindset that, yeah, I'm just exercising? How do you go from exercising to training? It's very simple, right? You follow your plan. Follow the plan that I've given you, because it's laid out in a way that it is to train with intent. You don't walk in blind and just say, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like today. You follow the program you've been given. It's there for a reason, a specific reason, to get you to that point where you want to get to, okay? You track your lifts on the app, you write them down in the app or a notebook, and then maybe you add into the app afterwards, whatever you prefer. Some people like to do both. The data shows whether you're actually progressing or whether you're just going through the motions. That's why we can see our exercise history on the app, right? We can look back and see what we did last week, the week before, 8 weeks ago, and see are we actually progressing with it. Of course, we want to chase quality and not just fatigue our muscles, right? A hard session doesn't mean like a productive session. Intentional training is about stimulus, not just sweating or hammering yourself into the ground, with poor form. You must make sure you're feeling the muscles you're working, and try and get that mind muscle connection. It will help a lot if you can do that. And think long term as well, guys. Don't just judge progress by one session. Not every session is going to go perfectly to plan either. Try and think in weeks and months and cycles and phases. Okay, intent builds momentum over time. Okay, so intent builds momentum over time. The more you train with intent, the more momentum you build, the more progress that you make. Okay, and the easier it will be in the future for you to make more progress. So that's the mindset shift that I want you to have. Okay, people say, but like, I don't want to take training too seriously. I don't want to become a bodybuilder. Don't worry, you won't. You won't. Like, you don't need to be a bodybuilder to train with intent. Intent is simply about respecting your time in the gym and getting the most out of it for the time that you're there. Okay? Why spend 45 minutes to an hour in the gym and then leave with nothing to show for it? just went through the motions. You know, you're already putting in the effort to go there. You might as well get the results for it as well. Okay. So to wrap up, guys, here's the difference, right? Exercising makes you tired. It burns some calories. Training makes you look and perform better. Okay. When you train with intent, every rep, every set, every week, you're building towards something. As I said, it's like a sat nav to get you exactly to where you want to be. That's how you actually transform your body, guys. Not just by doing random workouts, not by just winging it when you go in there, not by not tracking your lifts, by eating random stuff, by not following your plan to, doesn't have to be to perfection, but as close as we can to what's there, especially our calorie targets, our protein, by consistent intentional training. So from now on, check in with yourself. Are you just exercising or are you training with intent? Okay, because one keeps you stuck and the other keeps you moving forward. So that's it, guys. Have we any questions on tonight? Does everything make sense? Let me know here in the chat. Hopefully that landed, guys. It's important just to get these topics across. As I said, usually if one person's struggling with this stuff, other people are as well. So hopefully this landed. It made sense to you. It all makes sense, Siobhan. Good stuff. Thank you for letting me use you as an example earlier as well. A great example, by the way. Shows what you can do when you put your mind to something, you focus, and you just go all in with it. Yes, it's going to be nerve-wracking a little bit if something that's outside your comfort zone, but guys, that's where the growth happens. That's where the growth occurs. Pushing yourself outside that comfort zone. Okay? And look, you'll all have different challenges in different ways. Lydia, Oisin, Sean was here a moment ago. Stephanie, Siobhan, Keen and Aideen were here a minute ago as well. Everyone has their different challenges in different ways. But it's all about how you respond, how you react, and how you push forward with it. Don't be fearful of failing. Don't be just avoiding doing things you know you should be doing because you're worried about the judgment or what other people think. The faster you fail, the faster you learn, the faster you can make progress. It really is that simple, okay? Um, Thanks for the info, a lot to take in, but we'll work on it. Good stuff. Congrats, Siobhan. No stopping you. No stopping her at all. She's on to the next one in a couple of months and she's going to Prague for a big half marathon there in the new year as well. So exciting stuff, exciting stuff. So that's it, guys. We landed there. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's session. Any questions, of course, feel free to reach out privately there, and we'll see you all on the inside anyway. Oisin, great stuff as well, flying us so far. Ed, Lydia, absolutely smashing it. Let's keep it going, okay?